My name is Robert, commonly known as Bob Atkinson, and I served in the Canadian Army in a crew, a five-man crew in a Sherman tank in the 4th Armored Division, 22nd Armored Regiment in France, Belgium, Holland, and into Germany. I joined originally when I was still in high school, a militia unit in the town where I lived at the time. I was 16 and 17, and then as soon as I turned 18, I joined the regular army. Started off in Regina, shipped down to Brampton, Ontario for basic training, and then on to Camp Borden for tank training. When that was all finished, went to Nova Scotia and over on a troop ship to England with 14,000 on board. Needless to say, it was crowded. There was only time for 2 meals a day by the time everybody got to these dining rooms. And then some of the meals weren't worth eating anyway. So anyway, I did further training in England, and eventually trained as a radio operator, or wireless we called them, and we had to use British terms. And radio operator and gunner. And so I was in the turret of the tank when I eventually got to the regiment. And like the crew commander was, he had his head out, so he was sitting duck for snipers, whereas the gunner and myself, we were down in the turret. Driver had his turret, and co-driver had his. Well, we fought our way through. Up into through Belgium and up into Holland, and then we were sort of in a static position over the winter, 44, 45, a very, very cold winter. And we did a lot of shelling across the Maas River. The Germans were on the other side, we were on this side. And that went on until they had run short of supplies because the port of Antwerp, which is a big major port, it hadn't been opened yet. But once it was opened, the supplies came in fast and furious, and the regiments all were restocked with guns, ammunition, food, whatever, and we resumed the push into northern and eastern Holland in February of 1945. So anyway, we did battle with some pretty strong elements of the German army, including Hitler Youth, who were boys, 15, 16, but they'd be brought up to praise Hitler. And so they were tough little people. Anyway, we were in this fierce battle one morning. It's the 2nd of March, 1945. And we were shelling them, they were shelling us, and we had taken some prisoners. And then the enemy got around behind our tank and hit it with penetrating shell in our engines. Well, it just immediately, we were carrying high octane gas and a big load of high explosive ammunition, which I was sitting on this pile of ammunition. So, of course, the tank went up in flames immediately. The crew commander got out, the gunner got out, and I'm behind the gunner pushing him out. We all got out, but then all what broke loose. They were shelling us, and we all we could do was try and take cover somewhere. We get into a ditch. There was, they were just small arms fire going across this ditch like you wouldn't believe. And my buddy Mac, our driver, we were in this ditch side by side, and I said, Mac, I whispered, I said, those guys are not speaking English, they're speaking German. So they were some of the German troops. We're all in the ditch together. So, well, anyway, we climbed out of the ditch, and then I got hit with rifle fire in my first one was in my arm, and I moved a little further, and I was trying to hold the arm, and I got hit in the leg, and then I had to. Well, I was losing a lot of blood, I guess, so I was looking for a place to sit down, and anyway, some of the prisoners we'd taken were German medics, and two of them came along. They had bandaged up the German prisoners that we had, and then they bandaged us. No, there was no discrimination. They just, which saved my life. So I could say that I am sort of indebted to certain German troops. Well, I spent about 13 months in hospital. I finally got evacuated out of there. 13 months in hospital, several operations, and recovered enough to get out a year and some later, and was offered a job in federal government, which I took. Well, to me, it goes back to World War I, where my father served in the Canadian Army over in France and Belgium. My mother was a nursing sister in a British hospital behind the front lines in Belgium. And this is where they met. My dad became a patient in her hospital. She had some terrible stories to tell about the conditions. The whole hospital was just a series of what we call Quonset huts. And they had just terrible casualties. A lot of them had been gassed. They're blind from the poison gas. And then the hospital was infested with rats. And the rats would come in during the night and run right over the patients and heading for the kitchen to steal some bread. Those are the kind of stories she had to tell. She saw a lot of frontline service too, you might say. They lost a lot of good friends, and then my wife was from Wales, and she lost two uncles in the First War, and they neither one of them had a grave. They were just blown to bits, and their name is on a wall in Belgium. When World War II ended, it was decided that they would keep the November 11th as the national holiday, and I was glad they did, because it meant so much to there were still thousands of surviving First War vets, and I think had they changed it to the May or August end of World War II, it wouldn't. I don't think it would have meant the same. So November 11th does mean a lot to me. I've attended, I think, as far as I can remember, all but 3 or 4 Remembrance Day services in the city here since 1945. It was something I just wouldn't miss. It's something that they should, Canadians in general should recognize that they are here because of the sacrifices made by all the veterans of both wars, Korea, whatever war our country decided to support, take part in. And I think it's all important to keep it up and not forget.